So it is Sunday, April the 16th. Time to talk some NBA playoffs. Welcome to Fast Break Bets here. Gino and Erik from ETOF21 Sports. Our show is presented by the folks over at DRF Sportsbook. We'll be looking at the lines at DRF Sports, and we'll also talk about Thrive Fantasy. If you are a fan of fantasy sports, if you play daily fantasy, this is a site that we want to direct you to. It is a fun site where you're not playing against thousands and thousands of other bot entries, computer generated entries. Each of these featured contests have about 100 entries you're playing against. $20 entry for today's featured game, 2,000 in prizes, 400 to the winner. And if you use the promo code Gino, you can get a match deposit bonus of anything up to 250. Deposit at least 25 though, so you can get that bonus. Erik, buddy, before we move forward, let's reflect a little bit on what we saw yesterday. And as far as you and I are concerned, our wagering got off to a slow start in the morning, but we ramped back up later in the day yesterday. So just, overall, some of your first thoughts. Early game we had Nets 76ers. Nets did their best, tried early on. 76ers just sort of wore them down. And what hurts for me, I played Harden under 19 and a half points. He hit 7 threes yesterday. Yeah. I mean, literally, if he hits 5 threes, we hit that under, and maybe the game is a little bit different. So I don't expect Harden to be hitting 7 threes every game throughout the series, but on paper, it did look like Philly has a little bit more than the Nets. We'll see if the Nets can kind of fire back, because the key for them, they're a really good 3-point shooting team. When they shoot a high clip from 3, they're going to be very tough. Anything that stood out to you from that game yesterday?
Maybe we see some more Cam Thomas. I know there's some issue with him and the coach Jacques Vaughn, but you need some scoring. He's a walking bucket, so maybe see a little bit more of him moving forward. Nets put up a fight, but when they played as good as they could, but the Sixers just shot good from 3, so they really didn't have that much of a chance. And I still can't stand Embiid.
That's one of those funny things. It's funny because I'll never really understand the Embiid one. Like, I get why most of the other people you don't like. Embiid is the one that I actually love. He's funny. He reminds me a lot of Giannis, except he just talks a little bit more, but they're both goofy. The reason why I'm okay with Embiid, he works hard. That's why I like him, because you can see it in his game that he's improved his game, and that once he came into this country without a whole lot of basketball experience, he's really been a student of the game versus someone like we talk about Harden or other guys that we don't really see show improvement year in, year out. So we'll have some fun talking about Embiid all over the next couple weeks.
I just don't like him with the flopping, the antics with the hands, the look at me I should win the MVP, the showing up with the nightclub wearing his own game-worn jersey.
Well, I will say he did that. The MVP stuff. The MVP stuff, he seemed like he didn't really do at all this year. I think that was the last couple years.
He did it toward the end of the year.
Because I thought the last few years, I thought this year he sort of kind of leaned out of that. I don't mind I will say the fouling. I can't comprehend, like, when I watch him, because Shaq didn't get those calls, and neither does LeBron. Like, bigger guys don't get the calls that Embiid gets. It frustrates me as a fan. I understand why he flails around like a fish, but it bothers me. Like, he's taking the advantage. It's sort of like what we see Chris Paul and Trae Young and those guys do when they do their little moves. I hate it, though, because I don't know. I can't understand why he gets those calls as a big dude and somebody else does. But him overall, I'm actually a big Embiid guy. We'll have some fun talking about him. Let's talk about game 2 from yesterday, Erik. That was Hawks Celtics. And again, I had a couple bad beats early on. I had John Collins over 17 and a half points, rebounds, assists. He finished with 12 points, 4 rebounds. So he had 16. 1 bucket would have put us over and got us that hit with plus money. But Boston, one of the better teams on paper in this playoff run, they just came out playing really well early, sort of punched Atlanta in the mouth. And Atlanta, they weren't quite ready for the punch that Boston threw.
They have no chance if Capella plays over 20 minutes. I mean, luckily, able to get that prop over. It really stood out to me how much he played. Hawks made their run when they went small. They had, I'm spacing on the guy's name. Last name starts with O. When he was at the 5.
Big O, Okonwa. Yeah.
I really think they needed to use him,
and Collins.
Play a little bit smaller.
Yep.
And really, they're going to have to look to attack Robert Williams. When the Celtics defend the pick and roll, they usually blitz and double. But with Robert Williams, they don't do that. They do drop. And that's when Trey is really at his best. So that's what they're going to have to look to do. But it's going to take a giant effort from Trey to get to.
This is a little bit of it too. And knowing you, because we've talked about this before. Somebody one time said that Embiid was better than Giannis or something. And you've held that personally. You've taken that, well, and I think a lot of the Bucks fans do too, right? Because
I mean, that comment's right. I mean, Giannis doesn't get those calls. I mean, Giannis, like he gets beat up. And I mean, if he got the calls Embiid got, I mean, he'd have like 25 free throw attempts a game too.
And any person that ever says that LeBron does, I will tell you, you don't watch the games and you are not a fan of basketball. You are just a fan of hating on LeBron. Because the same exact thing happens with, there are 3 guys that I've seen in my entire life that could honestly get free throw calls every time down the court. Giannis, LeBron, and Shaq. And I say this as a fan of Kobe. Kobe got all those calls. Yeah. You know who does get a lot of calls too is Anthony Davis. He gets a lot of calls. And I think it has to do something with Anthony Davis sort of has some guard skills too. You know, maybe a little different than Giannis and LeBron, who are just like brick houses. They're like battering rams coming right at you, right? And so that's so unfair. These big, tough guys who are so like strong, because they're strong, they use it against them.
And I don't,
right?
Yeah. And I don't care how the game is called. I just want
consistency.
That's all I want.
Me too.
Want the consistent game.
If it's going to be soft calls, just give it to everyone. If it's going to be prison rules, just prison rules for everyone. And I'm fine with that. I completely agree with you. I don't like watching a game and feeling like we're watching 2 different sports. You watch some Harden games sometimes, or even Lillard, and you're like, how are they getting every one of those calls on the perimeter? But as soon as you go down low, everyone's banging like crazy and nothing gets called. So let's make some money. Great to hear from you today. Thanks so much for checking in with us. A couple more thoughts from yesterday. Knicks, Cavs. So Mitchell was excellent, scoring as we thought. But the problem, I don't know if it was necessarily him. Garland didn't take enough shots late in the game, and the rest of the team didn't get involved. They didn't get the bigs involved really at all in the offense. And late in this game, it was Mitchell versus Brunson. Brunson stepped up. He was great. I sort of feel like the difference in this game, Erik, was that in the first half, when Brunson had foul trouble, Randall stepped up, and Randall carried them. Then in the second half, Brunson was back to take the load, and the Cavs didn't really have that other guy step up and raise their game and raise their level in a big game. So Tibbs did a really good job with the Knicks. There was 1 or 2 plays late where Randall went in and got a huge offensive rebound that may have been the difference in the game there. But fun series. Like, I feel like this will be a pretty evenly matched series back and forth, and we'll see if these teams kind of punch and counter punch. This was a good game for the both of us. You had the Knicks. I also had Randall on the under with his points total, so we cashed both of those ones yesterday.
Randall, healthy, played better than I expected him to play.
Completely agree. He did.
Hit some key shots.
And then, you know what I loved is that late in the game, it was all Brunson.
Yeah.
They didn't go to Randall because that's where he struggles down the stretch. He gets a little bit, he tries to do too much. Brunson is so much more level-headed. You just see like the pace that he moves with. I thought that was a really good job by Tibbs, making sure the ball was in your best playmaker's hand late, and that's Brunson, who we trust.
And you made the comment against Garland, for Garland like not shooting the ball. Mitchell had 30 shots. This year, do you know how many games the Cavs have won when Mitchell has 30 shot attempts? 0. I think it's either 0-4 or over 5. And he tried to do too much. So, I mean, like, I get it. Like, he's their guy and everything, but you have to get those other guys involved. I thought there was plenty of times when they were making their comeback, he forced up a three, forced up a shot when he shouldn't have. And if he's going to attempt 30 shots a game, they have zero chance of winning the series. He has to get those other guys involved. So that way they do have the confidence to attempt the shot, to make the shot in those closing minutes.
Now, I will. This is one of those things where I think again, and let's make some money. And one of the things, it's a very it's a tricky dance, right? Because on one side, exactly what you said is right. But then on the other side, we do see sometimes in these playoff moments where guys get tight, right? Where they get the ball maybe and then don't go at it, or they're not sort of rising to the moment. I'm not saying that Garland didn't do that, but it's one of those things where for a guy like Mitchell, right? What's hard is if he doesn't take some of those shots, he gets crap. People will say, you didn't want to take the big shot. You're not the guy. You're not the closer. So that's one of those things that we saw like a young Kobe and young stars, even young LeBron. Remember the kind of crap he would get for making a pass late in the game instead of taking a shot with two guys on him. To me, that's such a difficult, that's like taking the next step to superstardom, because that's a hard thing to do, Erik, right? During game time like that, down the stretch, you're cooking. You know that this is probably a high percentage shot, but is it better for our team to get Mobley a lob or to get Allen a look? That's like a tricky balance to have in your head. So I don't want to be as hard on Mitchell, like let's make money is, because he's playing so well. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, just another playoff loss for him, but you're right. I feel like there's got to be some sort of a middle ground, right? Because we don't want him to be not aggressive and just be a passer. We want him to still try to take over the game late, but it's like a dance, right? It's very, very tricky.
And that's what those good players are able to do. They're able to get those second tier guys involved. A player like Garland needs the ball in his hands, needs to create. He's not the spot up shooter.
They need to flip at least a little bit late in the game and have the ball in Garland's hand just a few times, not every time, just once or twice, because Mitchell off the ball is fine.
Yeah. But how can I word this? It gets to the point where, when are we going, like, hypothetically, let's say they lose this series. When is Mitchell going to get critiqued for not winning in the playoffs?
Well, I don't think he's thought of at the level of like the superstars, right? I think that sort of has something to do with it, because I don't think Mitchell gets talked about perception-wise like a top 10 guy in the league. So I do think he probably has a little bit more time before we start really getting on him for it, because, I mean, I don't know. Where do you sort of stack him up when you kind of tier-wise? To me, he's below the top 10.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he's probably in that next tier of like 15 or so.
I probably have him like around 20, 25. I mean, like, I'd have to write everything down, kind of.
Yeah, but I think that has something to do with it, right? The guys we want to give more crap to are Embiid, Jokic, LeBron, Curry, Durant, Giannis. Those guys all feel like they're sort of a tier above Mitchell. I just sort of look at this team, and the one thing that I mentioned yesterday too to you was, man, their bench is bad.
Really
like
bad.
they have no depth. They were 28th in the league in scoring, and you don't feel like there's more than LeVert coming off the bench there. So they're probably like a piece or two away still,
Plus,
keep going.
they lose against teams with a winning record. I mean, that's what they've done all year, lose against teams with a winning record. So I don't know. Plus the Tibbs coaching advantage, they'll have to kind of come up with something, run like blitz Brunson, make Barrett and Grimes beat them a little bit more. They're going to have to double to get the ball out of Brunson's hands.
One thing to remember while we go through these playoff rounds, and we're going to get into today's games in just a moment, pencil the Knicks into the second round. Just keep in mind that when we are betting these games, and you'll see Erik and I do this a lot of the time, you can't get really, really high on what just happened in that last game. because that's what everybody wants to do. We all just saw the Knicks play a little bit better late. Does that mean we pencil them in through the rest of this series? Absolutely not. You can make adjustments. Things can happen, go back and forth. But I'm not ready to just pencil the Knicks in, right? I think that was a competitive, close enough game to where I could absolutely see these games going back and forth the next 3 or 4 games. But great.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see the adjustment that the Cavs made. Cavs were in a position. Brunson and Randall played well, but if at the beginning of the game, Bickerstaff doesn't do something where he's, like I said, blitzing Brunson to get the ball out of Brunson's hands, it's going to be a hard thing, because when I look at the team, I said it yesterday, I trust Brunson to make more plays down the stretch than I do Mitchell. So,
I do. See, the guy who they need to get involved more, the one who I think might honestly be the best overall player on the entire court, is Evan Mobley. He needs to get involved offensively, run some plays through him, have him make some decisions. You get the ball, like, better things happen. Your guys are going to be just a little bit more open. Your lanes are going to be better. I think they got to get him more involved, because he can do things offensively that will make it difficult on the Knicks. Like, the Knicks don't really have an answer there. If Mobley, like Robinson, they can throw at him and he's fine. But if he's able to be one of the best players on the court, that's where they can have a difference. And so that's going to be one of the most fun competitive series, I think. Late last night, we had an awesome game, man. Kings versus Warriors. Exactly like we thought. The Kings fans were going nuts throughout that game. Then you've got the Warriors come all the way back. Looked like they were going to pull out that win during the fourth quarter. They hit 3 threes in a row, but Fox just kept coming back. Monk just kept coming back. Monk was 14 of 14 from the free throw line. I'm pretty positive I'm going to play against Sacramento in their next game, just because they were so up for this game with the fans and all this energy of like 17 years, and you're playing against your big brother, Golden State. And, Fox had I think the second most points in a playoff debut ever. And you've got Monk going perfect from the free throw line. Like, I'll probably play a Sabonis prop over, because he can't be worse. But it seemed like late in that game, a lot of things started bouncing for the Kings. I could see them sort of so much emotion and kind of coming back to life in the next game.
Sabonis couldn't finish to save his life. He went so many.
Brutal. Just bunny. Yep.
Lynn played tremendous. Fox made some insane plays. Jordan Poole is such a liability on defense. I understand he does that little step back. He can make some shots, but he is just such a liability on the defensive end. Wiggins looked better than I thought. Monk was great. Herter struggled a little bit. I think he was like 3 of 12 from the field. I played some prop. I think it was Fox to have the most points at plus 350 in the series. That's looking good after the first game.
Great start.
I think this series is going to be a long series.
Me too. I think it's going to be long. I just feel like the next game might be a game for some of that, at least for Fox and Monk, to come back down to life a little bit, because they were a little over their heads in that game, which was awesome. Like, that's what great players need to do for you to win.
Yeah, I think how can I word this? They played great. Great to see from Fox. I've liked him since his Kentucky days. I thought the Lakers should have drafted him instead.
Me too. You would think about how Lonzo versus Fox, because they had that rivalry in college too. Fox was always thought of as more of a killer, right? As more of a guy who would sort of be this guy who could carry you late. And then early in his career, I want to say struggled, but his teams weren't winning, and he was in Sacramento. He's kind of out of sight, out of mind. He's still not a great shooter, but he hit some big threes last night.
He hit some big shots, made some big free throws. Monk played freaking phenomenal. It's gonna be interesting what happens, but it goes back to that comment I made. We got to remember the Nets from last year. Last year, everyone thought this Nets Celtics series was going to be that really competitive series. Turned out to be a sweep. Game 2 is going to be kind of telling to see what happens.
Okay, well, there's a look at yesterday. Let's dive into today. And right off the bat, we say, what Lakers gear are you rocking, Gino? I'm rocking my Lakers little pullover jacket right here, ready to rock and roll. And me and Erik are going to be throwing some fisticuffs right off the bat this morning because I'm pretty sure Erik is on the Memphis side. But let's set this game up for you a little bit. Memphis is favored in the series, but it's pretty tight when you look at these series prices. Just a day or two ago, it was about Memphis minus 130 in the series, Lakers plus about 115 in the series. Now, Memphis has the number 4 net rating in the league. They were the number 3 defense in the league. So as that net rating, that has them as the best net rating of the teams in the West. Keep in mind, though, I think for both of these teams and for a lot of the playoff teams this year, if you're using sample sizes of the full season, some of the metrics will be off because these aren't the same rosters. These rosters have flipped a lot. Players are in and out. So you want to try to use some of the more recent sample sizes or sample sizes where you can find a lot of the same roster. Like for Memphis, they don't have Brandon Clark and Steven Adams right now, who are big pieces of helping that defense. So their defense probably not quite as strong as it was, and they don't have as much depth. But for Memphis, they are number 1 in points in the paint. They score 58 points in the paint per game, 49.9%. 50% of their points, half, come in the paint, which is crazy. They aren't afraid to talk. Brooks said he wanted LeBron. We had all that weird stuff with Shannon Sharp earlier in the year at the Laker game. Brooks was very vocal when he slowed LeBron down in a game earlier this year. Bane and LeBron got into it last year, which was fun. So these two teams, if there is like a hard foul or two, it could get a little chippy. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see that happening. Keep in mind, Kennard has been incredible, and Erik will talk about him in just a minute. He's shooting 53% on three-pointers in his 24 games with Memphis this year. One real key to their success is going to be for Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson Jr. has to outplay Anthony Davis in this series or basically go head up with him because he has to be the defensive anchor for them. He has to slow down Anthony Davis, but he also has to be able to score. And Jaren Jackson has scored 30 points in 3 of his last 4 games. So maybe he is getting ready to take on more of the scoring load. Let's flip to the Lakers side. On the Lakers side, they played poorly in their play-in game. They looked tired, but they still somehow won a game that they probably shouldn't have won after that late foul from Anthony Davis. They did beat Memphis 2 out of 3 times this year. Totally different rosters now. Major question that I have, Erik, for the Lakers. How will their transition defense play out against this team? Lakers were bottom 5 in transition points per game allowed. They do have better personnel now than earlier in the year, so they're a little bit better transition defense. Memphis is second in transition points per game. Ja and Bane individually are 2 of the top 10 individual scorers at transition buckets. And then one major question that I have, D'Angelo Russell. He struggled versus his old team in the play-in game. D'Angelo Russell struggled last year in a series against Memphis. He only had, in 6 games in the playoffs, 33 minutes a game, D'Angelo Russell shooting 33% up from the field, 38% from 3 last year. He had 12 points per game, 6.7 assists, 1.5 steals. He had 1 game where he scored 22 points. The other 5 games, he scored 12 or less. Will they be able to get more from D'Angelo Russell than they got in that series last year? And so for me, Erik, as I know we both have a couple plays, I was talking D'Angelo Russell. That's my first play. I think it's got to be a D'Angelo Russell game. I think the Lakers want to give him some more open looks, some more open shots. I think D'Angelo Russell will bounce back here. He has had a really, really good stretch coming over to the Lakers. He shot incredibly, shooting 41% from 3 for the Lakers in 17 games. He had multiple 3-pointers in 13 of the 17 games he played this year. I don't think he's that bad. I think it was probably on top of the fact that it was his old team. Now we've got a series. He can relax a little bit. Did he play poorly against Memphis last year? But he did have some good playoff games when he led the Nets, when he was an all-star a couple years ago, and he was sort of the guy on that team. So for me, my first play is D'Angelo to score 15. But Erik, you're grizzing it up today, right?
I'm grizzing it up, my friend. I look at this, for the season. Grizzlies are 25-16 at home. That's 61% ATS. In game one, since LeBron has joined the Lakers are 2-5 ATS. LeBron in his career on the road in game ones, 3-14. So what does that mean? He's feeling it out. LeBron is probably the smartest basketball player ever to play the game. He's feeling it out, seeing what the other team's doing, and then they make the adjustments. Jenkins, in his tenure as the coach, he is phenomenal ATS games 1 and 2, over 60%. Games 3 and 4, that number drops below 50% ATS. So when the series start happening and these coaches make adjustments, Jenkins really struggles. Pre-flop, before all the adjustments, he is lights out against the number. So and
do you wonder if that has something to do?
I think the Lakers are going to win the series. Don't get me wrong. But I think with the Lakers allow a lot of threes. I think Memphis is going to get a lot of threes today from Kennard, Bane, and Crew. They're going to get out in transition and run. You look at the shot quality numbers. Shot quality had that game against Minnesota, a win for Minnesota. And I'm just basically on what LeBron has done is loses game 1 on the road, figures it out, wins the series.
When you talk about Jenkins and the adjustments, do you think that maybe has something to do with the fact that Memphis is so, like, a guy like Ja, if you coach players like that, Ja, the first time players or the second time players match up against a guy like Ja, they're losing, right? Because he is so fast and so athletic, and he is just naturally better than most people when you roll the ball out on the court. But then after you kind of play him 2 or 3 or 4 times, do you get a little bit more familiar? Kind of like what you're saying, right? The athleticism becomes a little bit less important the deeper you go into these series, right?
Yeah, the athleticism becomes less important. The pace slows down a little bit. The possession shrink. And it's one of the trends, like someone mentioned about first half unders. That's more of a game 5, game 7 thing.
Absolutely.
First half overs, I think, are something like 58, 60% in game 1s. They tend to be a little bit more up and down and not as tight. And they play the pace a little higher because these teams are trying to figure it out. So I in the game, I like Memphis. Then after Memphis wins, I'm going to come back and play the Lakers to win the series.
Next time out, I've got one more play in this game. Oh, so do you, though. You've got Kennard. Right?
I did Kennard over 2.5 threes. Lakers give up
shooting 53% in 25 games. And I will tell you, he, as a Clipper, killed the Lakers too. He is a Laker killer. So he's going to hit 5 threes today. Get ready for it. It's coming. No doubt about it.
5.7 per shot, 5.7 3-point attempts per game since going to the Grizzlies, since joining the Grizzlies, shooting 54% from 3. And like I said, Lakers give up the 9th most threes. They give up a lot of non-corner threes. That's where Kennard's going to live, kind of on that elbow. So I absolutely love Kennard over 2.5 threes. That was at plus money. That was at plus 105. You can also maybe build a little bit ladder, do the over 3.5. I think he's going to get plenty of looks today.
My other play in this game, Austin Reeves over 19.5 points and assists. He didn't have a very good game either the other night. And that was his first experience in a playoff situation. And I think, not that he wasn't ready for it. If I would have told you anyone that I think will be ready for the playoffs, I would have said Austin Reeves. This dude is a player. He's a tough dude. He can hit you in many different ways. So Austin Reeves, his final 18 games of the year, he was averaging 32 minutes a game, 18.7 points per game on 9 field goal attempts. He was shooting 7 free throw attempts per game, 85% from the free throw line. He was shooting 43% on threes. He also was averaging just under 6 assists a game. So he's going to get back to that level where he was. It was just one of those, like we said, those play-in games are a different animal when it's just one game and there's this angst, there's this anxiety. Everything's a little bit different. I think it's going to be a much better game also for Austin Reeves. Yeah, I mean, it'll come down to the stars, and I will mention this. Anthony Davis, I mentioned it one time yesterday before Mitchell, and the difference, as our friend Let's Make Money said, playoff losses for Mitchell. Keep in mind, Anthony Davis is a champion, an NBA champ, right? He's won a ring, and he's had some pretty good playoff success. Even with New Orleans, he carried them and swept a Blazers team and had a nice couple series. Anthony Davis is 8th all-time in career playoff scoring. Mm-hmm. Top 10. He has been a monster in the playoffs. Like, the only guys ahead of Anthony Davis in the playoffs, MJ, Luka, Iverson, KD, Jerry West, LeBron, and Donovan Mitchell. He's averaging 27.3 points per game. Anthony Davis is scoring more than Elgin Baylor, Giannis, Steph, Jokic, Hakeem, Kobe, Dirk, Kareem, Shaq, and Embiid. So he has been very, very good. Since LeBron has returned, the Lakers are 7-2. LeBron looks healthy. This will be a fun game. This will be a fun series. You look at guys like Beasley. Beasley struggled for about 12 games. He was taken out of the starting lineup. Then they put him back. They kept him out of the starting lineup, but started to give him a little bit more time. Final 5 games of the year, he was shooting 37% from 3. So I'm very excited for this. And as a fan of the Lakers, I know nobody likes to give the Lakers any credit. Everyone likes to crap on them. But Erik, man, when they were 2-10 this year, we're done. I mean, there's no shot. Like the energy of the fan base with a 2-10 Lakers team and Westbrook, a team that we knew didn't fit and knew had no shot. It's so much different than how we feel. You are actually talking about the Lakers having a chance to win this series.
Yeah, I'll probably play a Lakers future if they lose this game.
That would have never happened 2 months ago. Ever. Yeah. Like, we all knew they had no chance. They didn't fit. And you know what? Rob Pelinka, Darvin Ham, they have not been perfect. Anthony Davis. But those guys all came together and helped lead this team just to get them to this spot and to get them a full series. So, a lot of fun. This is a couple of good questions here. Brooks, Embiid, or Harden? Who's the biggest flopper? That's a good one.
Embiid and Harden. All those are pretty good.
Well, Embiid is bigger, so you see the flop more, right? Like you said, when he throws his arms up, it's different than Harden when Harden just is kind of doing the head fake, Because you're right, Embiid flails his arms up, and then sometimes he takes a dive on the floor, and he's he's swimming out there.
Yesterday, and then you act like he was laying on the ground like he was freaking dying. Like, I don't know. I'm just not an Embiid guy. I know you are, and I'm going to give you. I actually. He's never going to win a championship. There, I said it. He is never going to win a championship.
I'm not set on that. I think with this team, with this coach, he wouldn't win a championship. But we talked about it last year after they got eliminated. What if you traded Embiid to Miami and you put him with Jimmy Butler and Spoelstra? I think that team could win a championship or be very close or be closer. I think he needs another killer out there, like we've said, to keep making Embiid into that killer. I think if Embiid was paired up with a Butler, with a LeBron, with a guy like a Ja, who we're talking about, who's I don't want to say killer because he's flashing guns around, but and Bobby wants to know if Ja was hitting the club last night. Yeah, who knows, right? Who knows where Ja was? But man, Embiid flails. Brooks is just more of a prick, right? Like, Brooks doesn't come off as much of a flopper to me as like a cheap shotter. Like, he's the guy that's gonna like hit you in the back of your knee, like right where you're like where the back of your kneecap, and try to like really like injure you and hurt you. Brooks, Embiid, Harden. That was a question from Let's Make Money. So, Erik, any other final thoughts? Lakers, Grizz. You said you think Grizz today, and then so for someone like you, you'd love to see Grizz win by 25. Then it'll build up the number that you could come back and play on the Lakers the next game.
Just because you're right, like not having Adams, not having Clark. Lakers have some advantages with their matchups. I think it's just going to take a little time for them to, how can I say this? To get it going, if you will. You know what I mean? To figure out what matchups to make.
This is the kind of thing, this is why, as a Laker fan, I get frustrated. Davis is 5-8 in the playoffs without James. Why do we say without James? Like, so what he did with LeBron doesn't count? even though those were monster numbers in the bubble. Like, what player have you ever seen that can completely carry a team without another player? LeBron didn't do it. The only guy that we've ever seen really do it was Dirk.
LeBron did it with those Cleveland guys, though.
Right? And he didn't even win. He didn't even win it all.
Yeah.
Like, they took him to the finals, but that Blazers sweep was awesome. And the difference is, when you're talking about wins for like Anthony Davis, even compared to Donovan Mitchell, Davis's Pelicans teams were not good.
They were decent, though. I mean, they had Drew Holiday. I'm trying to space who else they had.
They were what seeds were they ever in the league? They were never top seeds, right? They were always like 5, 6, 7, 8. They weren't ever your number one seed. That's sort of the difference between, like, Mitchell was on those good Utah teams a couple times where they were your number one seed, where they had the best record in the West, where they were. I don't think there was one time where anyone ever thought Anthony Davis on a Pelicans team was going to make the conference finals or the NBA finals. I don't think ever. That's sort of the difference. I hate the Lakers. So you're right. He hasn't won as much without LeBron, but that one series over the Blazers where he was phenomenal, that alone just showed you he could still carry the load and get the job done. And Anthony Davis had no LeBron for a Lakers team that was 16-7 since the All-Star break, and LeBron missed 13 of those games. That wasn't LeBron carrying that team. That was AD. Also, I hate the Lakers. I wonder who you're playing today. Got to be Memphis, right? Let's go to Dan. Is the Strus juice going to get loose? Lit up my Bulls over under 9.5 points. He's sort of one of those, like, on, off, like, right? You kind of play him one game, play against him the other. I went Strus game 1 over 11.5. He had nothing. Like, he was terrible. That number went down to 9.5, and then he was insane.
He was lights out. I mean, the game he had, I thought that was going to be the hero game. I mean, he just got the open looks, and I would definitely lean to the under, though, because the thing with this Bucks Heat game is, okay, you put Bam on Giannis.
Well, let's go. We're going there right now, right? Do you have anything else to talk about the first game? I don't either. So let's move there.
Put Bam on Giannis. How are you going to hide Strus and Hero on the court at the same time
against Drew and Middleton? Like, who are they guarding? Right, one of them is guarding. So who's starting? Is it still Allen starting now, or is it crap?
I think the starting lineup will be oh my God, Lopez, Giannis, Middleton,
Drew, and Allen.
Those will be the 5.
And then Crowder will come in.
Ingles will get some run. Portis will get some run. That will basically be their 5-man rotation. The thing with the Bucks is they made 18 threes per game against the Heat. And that's the thing that kind of sticks out for me in this. The Heat give up the 29th most 3-point attempts per game in the league. The Bucks shoot the 5th most 3-point attempts per game. I'm looking at this. The Heat give up the 2nd most 3-pointers per game to opposing point guards. Holiday has gone over his total of 2 of 3 games. I played Drew Holiday over 2.5 threes. I think he's going to get the benefit of the matchup. And I think with everything in the NBA that's kind of got lost this year is he's kind of taken a step up with his game with how much Middleton has missed. And that's kind of getting overlooked. And Lopez's defensive abilities have improved. So you don't have to take him off of the floor. And he's such a 3-point threat. That's going to draw Bam. If Bam's on him, or whoever's on him, it's going to draw him away. So let's say you put Bam on Giannis. That means more than likely Strus is on Lopez. They'll put Strus in the low post. You put Bam on Lopez, they're going to draw Lopez away because he can shoot the threes. That's going to leave the rim open for Holiday, Middleton, or Giannis to get to it. I just think this is just too good of a matchup for the Bucks. I think the Heat get a lot of credit from what they used to do, but this isn't the Heat franchise that it used to be. And they just have a ton of bad contracts, namely Duncan Robinson, who's making $50 million sitting on the bench. So I don't know. I played Holiday over the 2.5 threes. Bucks haven't played for a while. Maybe they start off a little slow. Maybe we can get the better number at them live, but I think the Bucks win the game.
Erik's on the Bucks. Erik, the play for me in this game is man, and over the last couple of years, just watching Bam in these bigger games, he just never gets involved as much as he should. And this feels like a pretty high number for him for points, like in a game against a good defense. Sort of think who Bam is going to be matched up with. Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Portis. Like it's not going to be easy for him offensively, getting easy buckets. And I don't like when I watch the games, watching his level of involvement. He's not a great shooter. He's not going to hit from like anything more than the free throw line and out. And he doesn't seem like he's even aggressive, like going at the basket almost ever. So I'm Bam under 17.5 points today. And I do think.
And if Lopez is on him, Lopez should be first team all defense. He's not going to get it, but I think that's a great bet. That was actually one I was looking at.
Bobby called you a homer also. Bobby, we're both homers. We got the Lakers and then we got the Bucks coming right after them. The difference is the Bucks are definitely your favorites to win today, and probably the team to win it all. Bucks is a 9.5 point favorite as we look here at DRF Sportsbook. So Erik, anything else you want to mention? Heat, Bucks.
Looked at a live line for the Bucks. Bucks could start out a little bit slow this game. That wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, that's game 2 of our 4-game slate today. Third game, Clippers and the Suns. So Clippers, they were basically like plus 385 on the series price here. They are the oldest team in the league. And this is the series where it's really tough to use like any sort of metrics, because the Clippers don't have Paul George, and now they do have Russell Westbrook. And the Suns, they've got Kevin Durant now, and they don't have Bridges, and so their team's a lot different than they were before. So, you're using metrics. It's not easy to do. But since the All-Star break, the Clippers are third in the league in three-point shooting. They're shooting 39% from three. How about Westbrook? And you're going to have a Westbrook prop in just a second. In 21 games for the Clippers, he's averaging 15.8 points per game. But what's crazy, he's shooting 49% from the field. He's shooting 36% from three. He has never shot higher than 34% from three in any season in his career, ever. And so just to compare, the last 2 years for the Lakers, he shot 29% from three. Now, if you want to say that was the Lakers' fault, Darvin Ham, Frank Vogel, they didn't use Russ correctly. Okay. His last 4 years, or he shot under 30% 4 of the last 6 years from three. And he's shooting 36%. I don't know if it's going to sustain. I don't know if deeper into the playoffs he can do it. But right now, he's been playing really, really well for them. And I think in this game, I know it's not the same, Erik, because they're not at home. But I do feel like there's this real narrative of we're just penciling the Suns in. Everyone's just moving the Suns along. I mean, I don't know about that. Do they have, since the All-Star break, they have the second worst free throw rate allowed, which is, they foul you a lot. Booker and Ayton foul you a lot. Those guys get in foul trouble. They put you at the free throw line. They're bottom 6 in steals per game. They're not creating a whole ton of turnovers. And Durant, he's only played 47 games this year. How come everybody just assumes he's going to be healthy throughout the whole playoff run? And people say, well, if LeBron and AD stay healthy, if Embiid stays healthy, if Durant stays healthy, if Chris Paul stays healthy, how am I going to trust those guys all the way through? Durant's only played 47 games this year. You're telling me he can play 20 to 25 games in a row right now? Because that's what they're going to need. They're going to need him to play 20 to 25 games if you want 4 series of maybe 5 or 6 games a series, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what Durant has been hurt the last couple of years. That's kind of his MO. I think because he has been hurt so much, he does kind of get a little bit of a pass. The thing about Westbrook that I think people forget is you kind of let's just hypothetically look at Westbrook, then look at Irving. Irving's just kind of there, just kind of is like playing ball. Westbrook strikes me as someone that goes, okay, you think I'm not good? I'm going to show it to you.
Yes, absolutely.
He kind of strikes me as a little bit more of like, okay, I'm going to
chip on your shoulder, prove it guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I could see him going down a little bit more, but I mean, you have to give him credit. He is playing well.
Playing fantastic. I'll give him all the credit in the world.
I played the over 25.5 points and assists, averaging 19.3 points, 8.6 assists the last 3 games. You know, he's averaging 30 minutes per game in the regular season. I think that's going to uptick in the playoffs just because the lack of the depth at the point guard position the Clippers have. Plus, you have Chris Paul defending him. I think this is just a great matchup for Westbrook.
Absolutely.
Just kind of looking at the overall series thing. Suns only 8-0 with Durant. That is because, like you said, he's been hurt. And that's what's going to happen now if he gets hurt again. I'm seeing a lot of people betting the Booker prop over 5.5 assists. Look, I just don't trust Booker in a look at me moment. That's just me. I don't trust this guy at a showboat look at me moment. I think he's going to force himself. I know he's averaging 6.9 assists with Durant there because he's getting a lot more run as the point guard in the second tier unit.
This is a team that, like, I know Durant's there, but some of these same guys got beat by 50 in a closeout playoff game. Like, that's still a thing, right? Like, in the biggest moment of a lot of their lives, they didn't show up.
And you mentioned the fouls. Clippers draw fouls at, I think it was like the 3rd highest rate in the association. So I think they are going to get to the line a little bit. One of the plays I was looking at this was the over, just because there is that trend 60% to the over in playoff games in round 1. The Clippers' ability to get to the line, Suns fouling a lot. And then also the defense has dipped a little bit with no PG 13 there. However, the Clippers have been able to maintain their level offensively, namely because of Norman Powell. Norman Powell's been averaging, I believe,
he's been awesome.
17 points. He's one of my Thrive picks. I think he's gone over 25 points in 6 games with no Paul. So their offense has been right there. So if you wanted to bet a side or a total, I'd probably go to the over of 225.
See, I know we're all talking about Durant too, but like, who's guarding Kawhi in this series? Are they going to try to have Durant guard him? He can't guard Kawhi. Like, right now, he's not ready to guard Kawhi. I don't know if Kawhi's been averaging 27 points per game on 54% shooting since the All-Star break. Is it Okogie, Durant, Craig? I don't think any of them are good matchups for him, because you don't want Durant having to expend all of his energy guarding Kawhi defensively and then not have a lot left for the offensive side. So, you know, I'm not really sure what to think there. I can't believe I'm doing this. But I'm doing it, Erik. Give me the Clippies plus the 7.5. Game 1. I'm on the Clippies. I think they come out firing in game 1 right off the bat. Again, you and I are very, we like playing against the narrative a lot of times. And the key for me is when the narrative and the point spread come together, and I feel like it's built in a little bit. I think this should probably be like 5.5.
Yeah, it does feel a little juiced.
And that's because everyone's like, you know, the Suns are favored to win the West. The Suns are the favorite to win the West. And they'll have to go on the road and possibly play Denver there. And like you said, we've only seen this group of guys play 10 games together. Like, what's going to happen when things slow down, when they get punched in the face and they turn and they don't really know where some of their other players are? What's their bench look like?
We've seen it when this Suns team with Paul and Booker has gotten punched in the face. They really don't have a punch back. Do you remember, what were they in that game 5? Was it game 5 against Milwaukee? They're up 20 in the playoffs, in the finals, and they ended up losing that game 5 and losing in 6 games. That embarrassing game 7. When they get punched in the face, they seem to wilter up. So yeah, I would love to see the Clippers win this game.
Okay, let's go Clippies. Here we go. Clippies plus the 7.5. A couple other comments here. Is PG going to play at all this series?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I wouldn't be shocked if it got to like a game 6 or 7 and we saw him try. I don't think he's soft. I think he tries. And we talked about this last week. Paul George's playoff numbers are pretty insane. I think he's one of only 2 players with like a certain qualifying amount of games that's raised their points per game, assists per game, and rebounds per game all in the playoffs, which is nuts. One thing we mentioned too, Ayton, right? I don't know about Ayton getting benched, but just is he going to be happy getting less and less and less looks?
Don't get along
already. And he's not going to get the ball very much.
This is like a rotation or does something, doesn't give an effort. I could see him benching him easily.
Absolutely. Or just him being a malcontent and not giving that same effort defensively. They need him to lock it down defensively. I've mentioned this before. He's not innate, like compare big men, right? Compare DeAndre Ayton to the Lakers, Anthony Davis. Compare him to Jaren Jackson, a different big man. Anthony Davis is naturally a defender. The offensive stuff comes later for Anthony Davis, but when he goes on the court, he wants to be the best defensive player. He wants to shut you down that way. Ayton is the opposite. Ayton was an offensive guy coming in from Arizona. He wasn't an incredible defender. He was a guy who shot all the time, who was like your leading scorer. So this is a role that's a little bit different for him. He's not a shutdown defensive center. And so now you've made him like your 4th offensive option. And I don't know how happy he's going to be. That's a great point on Let's Make Some Money. And here we go. We're friends today. Clippers, Clipper Nation. We're coming together for LA. I definitely won't join that Clipper Nation. But it's funny. A few years ago, I had no problem with the Clippers. I actually would root for the Clippers to do well. And it was just the Kawhi stuff, the Kawhi PG stuff. And since then, now I feel a little bit bitter. Kawhi shunned us. He could have come and played with the Lakers. He wanted to go play with those Clippers. Snoop Dogg was singing songs. Kawhi, Kawhi. He was making rap lyrics for him, and he shunned us. So you know what? Screw you, Clippies. But today, let's win, Clippies, or at least cover the 7.5. Anything else on this one, Erik? Clippers Suns before we move to our final game?
No.
Okay. Last game of the day, Erik. And we got the T-Wolves versus the Denver Nuggets. Feels like Denver hasn't played in about a year, right? Minnesota this will be the 3rd game Minnesota has played this week before Denver's played. Like Miami will have already played a playoff game and 2 play-in games before we've seen Denver play. It's like, oh, I forgot the Nuggets were still out there, but they are the number 1 seed. And I don't think this is a great matchup for them. I think they're better, and I think they will end up wearing the T-Wolves down. The way I'm going to play this game today, Erik, I'm curious, because you said you really have any plays in here. I'm going to go T-Wolves first half. The way I'm looking at this game, you've got a Timberwolves team that's played already twice this week. They're in a lot better rhythm. Rudy Gobert came back, and Karl Anthony Towns has played pretty well in playoff appearances so far. He was a guy that was not a very good playoff performer in prior playoff stints. But I do think Denver will be able to kind of wear them down. Keep in mind, Denver hasn't played a meaningful game in about a month.
Yeah, for a while.
Because they were up. They had about a 7 or 8 game lead on the number 2 seed. So they just Jokic may not have won the MVP because of that, because they were more concerned with kind of sitting him, making sure that he was healthy and he wasn't worn down. Because the last few years, we've seen Jokic come like the second round of playoffs. He's done. He's toast. I can see the Wolves coming out, just being in a better rhythm because they've had more recency. I could see, the fact that Gobert and Towns, you have a couple big bodies to put on Jokic early, might make him sort of a little uncomfortable early on. And Minnesota may get a little bit worn down without McDaniels, without Naz Reid. So instead of playing the full game, I'm going to play the first half, Erik. Think that the Timberwolves come out firing, try to come out on the road. Maybe the Nuggets are sleepwalking a little bit in the first half. I wouldn't be shocked to see a strong second half from the Nuggets, though. So I'll play T-Wolves first half as my play in this game.
If I were to play it, that's how I'd play it. I really don't trust the T-Wolves team. We really don't know what's going on with Denver with their injuries. They're very banged up more than people realize. What is Gobert going to do against Joker? Do they have Joker a little bit more on the wing? Out by the 3-point line, open stuff up for the lane to drive for other Nuggets players. Interesting matchup. I'm going to kind of use this one to
feel it out. You're going to be LeBron. You're going to be LeBron of this series.
I will say this, though. I thought the NBA did a phenomenal job of scheduling the games yesterday. I think today they did a god-awful job.
I completely agree.
Scheduling games.
Why was it? I know. You're absolutely right.
Why isn't there a game starting right now? There's no excuse for a game starting now.
I think they didn't have to do it on Sunday, but they did it because of the West Coast. Mm-hmm. Right? I could on a Sunday, it doesn't matter, but they did it because they have some of these games, because two of the games, the later games, they wanted to start later in the West for the West Coast audience. But we're sitting here. There should be a game right now starting on Sunday at 1:00 Eastern time. We shouldn't be waiting to 3 Eastern for the first game to start.
And I mean, the thing is like, think of it like this. Is it easier for someone on the East Coast to watch a late game or someone on the West Coast to watch a morning earlier game?
Yep.
So you're just killing your viewership. So I just don't understand the scheduling with this whole thing with NBA, but.
Yep. Erik, any other thoughts on the final game of today before we get into some Thrive Fantasy?
No, hopefully we get a good game. Hopefully we get some good games. Hopefully, it's a profitable day for us.
Okay, Erik, where are we going for fantasy today for Thrive? I've got, I think, 3 that I'm looking at for today. Today's Thrive Fantasy contest is actually one that only has the late 2 games in it. Doesn't have the early 2 games in it. So it'll be a little bit shorter of a contest. You'll have a few less props to dive into. Let me pull up our Thrive Fantasy site. Remember, thrivefantasy.com is the website. Use that promo code GINO, or you can click the direct link that's in the YouTube description. Today's Sunday NBA featured game is a $2,000 guaranteed prize pool, $20 entry fee. You have payouts, $400 to the winner, $250 to second, pays all the way down to $25 if you finish 26th in there. And keep in mind, it's not just basketball. Like today, you have a basketball, baseball. You have there's been hockey. I think they must have already started, but we have basketball, baseball, hockey, golf, soccer contest, UFC contest all the time right now. So there's so many different entries to contests you can get involved in. Erik, let's talk about the Sunday NBA first game. Who do you like here?
I went, obviously, Westbrook over 10.5 assists and rebounds, gone over this 7 of the last 10, 4 of the last 5, 2 of the last 3 to end the season. Paul defending, no point guard depth, and averaging. He averaged 30 minutes in the regular season. This is the playoffs. He's going to get a lot more. So yeah, I like Russ over the 10.5 rebounds.
That was one of mine also, Erik. So we're on the same one there. Russ over 10.5 rebounds and assists. The thing is, I mentioned Russ's shooting numbers too. I'm less convinced that he's going to keep shooting that well. But the thing about Russ, I am sure that even if he scores no points, he busts his ass to get rebounds. And he does, for as much crap as he gets, he's not a selfish player. He will get guys the ball. Zubac loves him. He was good for some big guys love Russ because Russ gets them easy locks.
Loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, like Zubac loves the dude. So even if you don't like Russ or you think his scoring will slow down a little bit, rebounds, assist numbers, they usually don't. What else are you looking at here, Erik?
Norman Powell over 21.5 points less rebounds. Last 6 games, he's averaged over 20 points a game, over 3 rebounds. Without George, he's gone over 25.6 times. I think he could easily go over this total in points alone. I think that's insanely low with how much run he's going to get. So Norman Powell over 21.5 points / rebounds.
And I think a lot of people haven't really been talking about it too. It's not only Paul George, it's also Marcus Morris, who's been out for a while. And what that does is just opens up more shots for Powell, for Westbrook. That's why they're playing a little bit better and their numbers have been better. They've less mouths to feed out there right now. So they are actually able to step up and answer the call. I've got one more in this game too. I'm going Kawhi, 38.5 points, rebounds, and assists. So his full combo, 38.5 points, rebounds, assists for Kawhi. As we talked about it, without Paul George, that means Russell Westbrook and Kawhi have to be facilitators a little bit more because Paul George was someone who would facilitate also for them. Russ is now their true point guard. They didn't really have a true point guard before Russ, and he's not even really a true point guard. He's kind of like a lighted up, really prolific point guard. Kawhi, over 38.5 points, rebounds, and assists there. So I've got one more, Erik, for Thrive. Do you have any other Thrive plays?
No, those are the only ones I have.
My last Thrive play today, look at how huge this number is. 47.5.
That's a big number, dude.
Dude, so think about this. Jokic can get a triple-double, 25 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and he's under that.
He's under it.
Absolutely. That is insane.
That is absurd. That is a pretty big number.
And all I'm thinking is he's been off for a little while, right? He's not been in rhythm. They haven't played in a while. And Minnesota has a couple big guys to throw at him. They can throw Gobert. They can throw Towns. So even if he has, what if he has 18, 11, and 12? That's a good game.
Insanely
good. Way under that. This number to me just feels way, way too high at 47.5. So I'm going under the points, rebounds, assist combo for Jokic. Erik, we are coming up on tip time. We have a little less than 2 hours, though. But like you said, there should be a game right now on the schedule. Nonetheless, 4 games today, and we'll be playing late into the night. Anything else you want to mention before we get out of here? We'll be back tomorrow, 5:00 p.m. Eastern time. 2 games on the slate tomorrow. And then Monday through Friday will be 5 Eastern time. Saturday, Sunday will be noon Eastern time.
Let's go, Grizz. That's all I got.
Oh, God. Let's go, Grizz. Today is going to be LA Day. First, it's going to be the Lakers. Then it's going to be Clipper Nation. Want to give a big shout out to all of you hanging out with us. I hate the Lakers. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's make some money. Bobby Thomas, Dan K, all of you guys, we really appreciate you checking in, you hanging out with us, you sharing your thoughts, your comments. We won't be live during the week, but on Saturday, Sunday, we will definitely incorporate all of your comments and your posts and everything. Some Fridays we might be able to be live too. It just depends on the schedule. So anytime we will be live, we'll let you know because we love hearing from you and all of your comments, your questions. It makes the show better. It really does. When I used to work on TVG, I used to work a lot of nights alone. And if it wasn't for all of the folks out there sending in emails, man, I would have been sitting there screwed a lot of the time. All these people were my co-hosts and really helped me get through the shows. So thanks so much to everyone. Don't forget Thrive Fantasy today. Get involved. Erik, buddy, look forward to chatting with you tomorrow. Good luck with everything.
Let's make some money.
Oh, no. One last time. I hate the Lakers. Says, let's go, Memphis. We'll see all of you. We'll see all of you again tomorrow. Thanks so much.